On.
Oh,
All right,
my coffee's
let's
empty.
get started. Welcome to Coffee and Code. This is our 11th episode, and I'm happy to have Cesar Betances here with us to talk about mobile, which was a popular subject based on how many people have joined from the MVP community. So it's great. Welcome, Cesar. The format of Coffee and Code really, the idea is just to have a kind of a casual conversation. It's not really a webinar where you have to do a bunch of slides and walk people through, but as preparation, if you want to show a little demo, that's great. Let's just kick it off. Maybe you should just describe, since we had a session at Summit, maybe you could just do a quick little summary about what Acumatica has done in the last couple years to update the framework, if anything, and then we can get a bunch of questions in.
All right. Well, thanks for the invite. And yeah, I'm here to talk a little bit about mobile. I've been working with Acumatica for almost 6 years, 5.5. And I made like a list of topics just to quickly review with you guys. Some of you may already know everything I'm about to say. Some of you maybe not. Might be a refresher for some of you. But at least I feel people that might see this recording afterwards could learn something and can move on with the mobile customizations. All right. So in my list, I have first, I would like to review a generic inquiry and its redirection. So we're going to review some out-of-the-box Acumatica screens. I'm going to put it in the screen in the mobile application, and then we're going to review the Mscl code and the GI configuration. I will talk very briefly about how to create a dashboard and a report. We're also going to review some redirection to containers. I feel at the summit, I didn't speak too much about that, so that's something I want to talk about it now. And also redirection to a dialog or a pop-up box or a smart panel as well. And at the end, I will pass on some tips I usually recommend to people, to clients and partners. And yeah, I think that's the list of topics I want to talk about today and talk with you guys about. So yeah, let's start. I will try to share my screen now. Let's do that. And okay, see here. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Let me bring my simulator here. Okay. Bring it here. Okay. So one thing I just want to point out is the redirection with generic inquiries. So I work for the development support team, and I see a lot of cases of clients, partners are asking about the GI redirection in mobile. So I just want to briefly go through it with you guys. So let's go ahead and check the contacts generic inquiry, the CR3020PL. And here we can see that it's a normal GI, has a bunch of tables, guessing some relations here. Have a list of fields, and this GI has some navigation setup. It has an entry screen that points to the contacts screen. And in the navigation, it has a different type of navigation, but it also has that contact screen here in the same tab. And if we see this GI in action, just give it a second. Let's just take a look at the contacts GI. The normal GI screen has some fields, and it has a navigation setup. So there's some redirection, and it's using the contacts screen. can see here also in the navigation tab. Let's go ahead and see this GI in action. And let's view the inquiry. And here we can see the results for this GI. Let's see the GI ID here. And if I double click in any of these records, it should do that redirection and take me to that contact screen. And so this is something that I see it's common, and many clients and partners they want to achieve this behavior. So I just want to review this quickly with you guys. And as you can see, in order for this to happen in the mobile, it has to happen in the web UI. So it has to happen in your site. And an observation that I have here is these exposed to the mobile application here checkbox. This is in the generic inquiry screen, and I just want to point out that there's two ways you can expose a generic inquiry to the mobile application. One is by mapping and creating the generic inquiry screen manually via customization project using the editor tool. And the second one is using this checkbox here, the exposed to the mobile application. So there is two observations with this checkbox here, and is that if you use this checkbox, you cannot further modify the generic inquiry in the mobile application, and you can also cannot have that redirect that we just saw when you double click in the mobile application. When you tap a contact, it will not go to the contact screen. It will just display a container showing the same information that you can see in the GI. We're going to see that all in the mobile application in action as well. With another GI that I just created for this this event. Let me look for it. Okay.
So Cesar, a question I have is, when did we have that checkbox exposed to mobile application? What version did that start in? Do you recall?
I think it started in 2020 R2.
Okay.
2020 R1, I don't think it was in 2019. So yes, I will guess 2020 R1, 2020 R2. Okay. And yeah, this is another GI that I created. It's a very simple GI, just showing 3 fields. And even though it had some navigation redirection configure, you will see if I use these checkbox, it won't do any navigation, any displaying of the contacts of the sales order screen in this case. So before we see that in action, I want to check the contacts generic inquiry. Let's take a look at these CR3020PL. So for that, I'm going to go to my instance, to the customization projects screen. I have a mobile customization here, so I'm going to use that one. I'm gonna make this big. And here on the left, you can see the mobile application section. This is where all the mobile changes. This is where you add new screen. This is where you modify an existing screen. This is where you update and remove items from this mobile sitemap or the mobile menu. And here I'm going to go and check that contacts generic inquiry. So let me click there. It's big again. And while this is loading, I'm going to bring the mobile Acumatica mobile application. I'm already logged in my instance, and let's go and check that contacts GI here. So let me bring that here. I'm going to slide this to the left. And on the right side of my screen, you can see the MSDL code, the mapping for that GI, the CR3020PL. And yeah, you can see that it's a very straightforward. It has it adds a container, it adds a couple of fields, and it adds 2 actions. And so you may ask where all this information is coming from. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. All that information is coming from the Wsdl schema of the generic inquiry screen. So let's go back to that generic inquiry screen. This is the generic inquiry screen. And you can access that information if you go to Tools on the top right corner, and then do click on Web Service. And in here, in this AXMX file, you can click on the service description link on the top. I'm going to do that now. And here is the Wsdl schema for this for that screen. The Wsdl schema will just display or list all the different functionality of any screen. You can see their fields, their containers, their actions. And in this file, I usually like to check first the content section. Here I can see all the list of all the containers and different sections that this screen has. You can see it has an action section here and a result section. I'm going to go ahead and check that actions section.
Cesar,
yeah,
I have a question for you actually.
Yeah.
Since, as far as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Wsdl schema is something from the SOAP API world, right? And when we migrate to the REST API, to the .NET Core, there is no built-in support for SOAP anymore in the .NET Core, right? So yeah. Do you know if that's going to be replaced with some other type of schema or something?
That is a good question, and I'm pretty sure this will have to be replaced, but I don't know the details yet.
Dimitri, wouldn't it be replaced by the OpenAPI spec, the 2.0?
I don't know. Like,
that's why you're asking.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably going to be Swagger.
I would think it'd be OpenAPI, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the model we're going with the UI in the first place, with even the PC is REST.
Yeah, I think those are good options. But yeah, I feel it should definitely be replaced. And
the other thing, Cesar, is that checkbox. I thought that just turned on OData v3 access to the result set of that, basically a view, of that GI. Is there any way that we can use OData v4 to go to some of the specific tables that are in that GI, or does it even make sense? It probably doesn't even make sense.
Can you repeat that question again?
Well, OData v3 is what you're turning on when you check that box, because it's basically just pulling from the result set. And that's why that would be another reason why I'm not sure why we'd go to the Wsdl to. I guess the actions would actually transfer over to the OpenAPI spec, but it's just odd that we're going to the Wsdl because that's an XML.
Yeah, you are correct.
SOAP,
exposure
15 years ago.
Yes. So the limitation we have right now with that checkbox is that let's say you have this GI has 10 fields, but in the mobile application, specifically, you only want to display 5 out of those 10. Then you won't be able to do that with that checkbox. So basically, we'll map everything you have, and you cannot further modify it after it's exposed, because it will generate the screen for you, the GI screen in the mobile automatically, and it will also add it to the sitemap, to the mobile sitemap automatically. There's no more steps. And so yeah, that's the only observation I have, is that you cannot further modify or hide or delete some of the fields in case you want to. Because I have that question asked where, you know, they say, oh, we don't want the users, the field the field user seeing this information from this GI. So yeah, in that case, I always recommend to just create it manually and map it, and then hide those fields from there. And yeah, so that's what I was going to show you now. So this is, for example, here the actions. We can see the different actions it has, that GI has available for us to map in the mobile. We see here the edit detail action. And if I go ahead and check that result container, then I can see the list of fields that we can show or not show in the mobile application. And these are the names of the containers and action that we need to use in the MSDL code on the customization project editor tool. So that's where this container name is coming from, all these field names as well, also the action names as well. Okay, so in order for us to have that redirection in the mobile, let's say we're in the, go back to my GI in mobile, and I tap one of these records and it goes to the contact screen like we're seeing here. We need to have that final destination, that screen, that target screen mapped as well in the mobile application. So it needs to be mapped and it needs to be included in the sitemap as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at that contact screen. I think this will give us a little bit more content, things to compare with the mobile application. Let's give it a second to load, and let's bring the contact screen here in the mobile application. Let's see if I can make this a little bit. Okay. And this is okay. It's back. All right, so here I just want to show you like the mapping from the MSDL code to the screen itself in the mobile application. And here we have the contact screen, and on the right side you can see that we're adding a main container, the contact summary, and it has a layout. It's a contact header. And on the layout property, where we are specifying the header first attachment, and it has a field contact ID, and we can see how these renders in the mobile application here, and all that is the blue section here on top. We can see that contact ID field, and the layout header first attachment, it just kind of make this render in the mobile screen where it shows at the top of the mobile screen, and it has this blue color. Then we can see below we're adding a couple of fields. We can see those fields rendering here on the left in the mobile application. In the business account field, it seems that this one is a selector, and we set the picker type to be a searchable. So let's see how it looks in the mobile application. We can see the business account field here. It looks like a selector, so I'm going to tab there. And yeah, this one is searchable, so we can search for our values here. I think we have 3 different displays for selectors. One is searchable like this. There's another one that is not searchable, and there's another one that is detached. If we scroll below, we can see we're creating a layout. And so let's take a look and see how those layouts are rendering. And here on the right side, we have a layout that adds 2 fields. It has the phone 1 type field and the phone 1 field. And in the phone 1 type field, we're setting the display name. So this is a property we can use for any of the fields. The layout is an inline type of layout. This is like joining two fields in one line in the mobile application. We can see that in this type phone 1 and type phone 2, and below we can see the phone 2 as well. We also have the special property for the field, and we're using both phone calls. These just add this little icon here on the right, the phone icon. We can see the same on the email. And if we scroll down on the right, we can see that the email field has that special property set to email send. And it just adds this little email icon on the right. And if we keep scrolling down, then we have a group. And group has the property to be, can be collapse, non-collapse. In this case, the property is set collapse true. So if we want to uncollapse, you will see that this little arrow here, and then we'll bring the rest of that group. This group only has two fields, the owner field on the top and the work group selector at the bottom. We can see them here. And the owner selector, actually, this is a good example. We can further modify this selector, so we can kind of limit the amount of fields or information that we want to display when we open that selector in the mobile application. So here you can see that we're using the selector instruction. We're setting only one field to show. We have that contact field, and the second one, we're just setting it not visible. So if I go to the mobile application and tap on that owner selector, then we can see that it only display the contact field. Yeah. So that's another way that we can limit or restrict the amount of information we displayed in a selector in the mobile application. Below that, we can see that we have a couple of groups. The same thing, you can set it to be collapsible, you can set it to be collapse or uncollapsed by default as well. And I think this is what I want to show you about the contacts screen. And the last thing I want to point out to have the redirection in the mobile application is that, let's say you have your GI created and your final destination screen created. You also need to include them both in the mobile sitemap. So you need to go and update the menu, the mobile menu, and make sure you add the GI screen there and also that form screen or entry screen as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the mobile sitemap. Here on the right, you can see, oh, it hasn't refreshed yet, so let's give it a second. And let me bring my mobile application back here. Okay, so here on the right side, you can see the sitemap. Here you can add folders, and let's look for that contacts GI. And okay, so here on the right side, you can see we created a folder and name it contacts, and that folder has that screen, that GI screen. If I look in this mobile sitemap for the form, it should be there in order for it to work. Yeah, so we can see it here on the right side. It's here. And in this case, we're setting visible false, because if you don't set it to false, then in the menu, you will have two entries. So you will have the contacts folder, and you may have the contact screen somewhere in here as well. And in this case, we want the people, the users, to access the contact folder through the contacts generic inquiry. And yeah, so is there any question up to this point? As you guys want to chime in here before I move to the next topic on my list?
Cesar, there's a couple of things in there about special.
Yep.
And I'm familiar with one for barcode. but I saw
Yeah.
one there for the phone and email. Those are new to me. Is there a place we can get a list of all the different types of special fields that are being added over time?
Yes, yes, that's a good question. And let me show you here. So the best place is help.acumatica.com. And so for the field, I always recommend going to, let me collapse all this. You can go to the mobile sitemap reference section here on the left. Then under MSDL, you can find the object type. In this case, is field. And then if we go to field, let's give it a second to load. We can see the different attributes it has. And sometimes, well, most of the times, the attribute we have the list of all the different options. For example, the picker type, we can see all the different options we have available. And for the special, yeah, the special is here. Here you can see the different options we have. So you mentioned before you use the barcode scan. Where is it? Go ahead. I see you're open. GPS, phone call. Yeah, these two were the one we saw. Email address here. Allow edit. So yeah, you can see the rest of them here. I don't see the barcode scan, but you can see the rest of them here. All right. So my next topic to discuss is very short. I'm not going to talk too much about this. Very straightforward. And it's about creating and mapping reports and dashboards. And it's basically it's 3 lines of MSDL code. You will create your report by doing add screen, and here you will replace this with your report ID or your dashboard ID, and then you will specify the type, either report or dashboard, and basically that's it. Here you can add comments in the MSDL code by using the number symbol. So here you can add any comments like this in case you need to. All right. And the next topic I want to talk is the redirection to containers. And let's go ahead and take a look at that in the instance. I'm going to switch back to my instance. Oh, actually, let me show you the GI with the exposed to mobile application before we move on. So I'm going back to my mobile application, and I'm going to look for that GI SO test. So here, if I go to that GI, I will see the same thing. I will see the list of records from that GI. Let me open that GI here too. So you will see the list of records like this. And let's give it a second in the mobile application. But here, if I tap or select any of the sales order records, then it will only display a container with the same information that it's being displayed in the GI. You cannot, further modify the record if you want to. You cannot further modify the GI itself as well, as mentioned before. So this is just the limitation I have with this exposed to mobile application checkbox here on the generic inquiry screen. So let's give it a second to load. A little bit slow here. Okay, it's taking some time. So, okay. In the meantime, while this is loading, I'm just going to review the expense claim screen in the instance. I want to show you one functionality I think can be useful and helpful when creating mobile screens. So yeah, let's take a look at the EP 301000 screen, the expense claim. screen. And here in this screen, you can see that in the details section, we have a add receipts action here. And if you click there, it kind of brings a pop-up or a panel, and with a list of records that you can tab, or in this case, select from, and then add it to your record, to your expense claim. And I feel this is something that we can see in many of the Acumatica screens can be useful. And I have seen the question with many partners and clients have asking, how can I achieve this behavior? And the best way to start is basically to look at what Acumatica has already done. So I always take a look at all the screens we have in the Acumatica mobile application, just see the behavior that we have mapped out of the box. And then I take a look at the MSDL code to see how engineering Acumatica did it. So that's what we're going to do today as well. Let me check all application. Still loading here. Okay, let's do something.
Cesar, I think while that is starting, just a question from our side.
Yeah.
So obviously, what we're going to look at is obviously from the controls to open the pop-ups, if we will. Is there also some sort of rerouting from the one screen to the other based on the enabled links? I know at this stage what we normally do is we'll create generic inquiries with all the information, and then based on this, navigate to the right screen. But if you look at, let's say, the sales order screen, you can open a sales order, you can see all the listed items there. If you click on one of that inventory items, it actually opens up the inventory page. And we've been trying to look at something like that for details level on the mobile side, that if you look at a list of items, that you can just click on the particular item on that list, that will redirect you to let's say the inventory item screen in mobile, because the screen is available in mobile, but it doesn't auto route from the details to the other screen in mobile. So maybe if we can just touch on that also.
Yeah, so for that behavior, I think as of now, you can only achieve it via an action. So you will have to have an action in your grid, in your detail, when you have a record selected, and then you can tap on that action and then redirect you to any screen that you want. I've had that question where users are trying to redirect from the GI like to a report, for example, or to another GI. But I'm afraid that's not still available. It's not supported as of now. I don't know if there is an idea on our community feedback site that maybe I don't know if there's one of them that partners are voting for it to be included in next release. But I know as of now, you can redirect to a screen, but it has to be through an action.
Okay, so obviously if you click the selected detail item, that'll be your current, and then just have an action button. That effectively from there would just reprocess to whichever selected item you've defined.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. That's the I think that's the way to do it as of now.
Okay, well, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to maybe close these, open it again. Let me refresh this GI. And here I'm going to open that expense claim screen. Going to log in back to my mobile application. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, I'm going to open that GI again. Fewer records. Okay. Okay, so this is the other test GI that I created that was exposed to the mobile application by checking that checkbox. And when you open the GI, it will behave the same. You will see the list of records. The difference here is that when you tap on any of the records, the source orders in this case, you will see just a detail of it, the container with the same information, but you cannot, it's not the source order screen, so you cannot further modify the record here. It's only for display purposes. And yeah, so that was the limitation I see with using the expose to mobile application checkbox. Okay. So now let's go ahead and take a look at that expense claim screen. See what is here. Okay, see it here. And while this is opening, yeah, as I mentioned before, here we have an action that opens this pop-up, this list of records that you can select from and then add it to your record itself. And here, I'm going to go ahead and open one of these expense claims in the mobile application. And I'm going to open as well the Mscl code for this. Okay, let's bring now the mobile application here. Here, I'm going to look for that receipts or okay, so same thing here. This is the out-of-the-box expense claim screen for the mobile application. And we can see that out of the box, we have a record map, a record action map named show submit receipt. Let me remove this timeout here. Let me try this again. So, and here we can see that this action has a redirect to container and is redirecting to another container called add receipts. And just as I mentioned before, so where all this information, these names come from, they come from, as of now, from the Wsdl schema of the specific screen. So in this case is the expense claims. So I'm going to go ahead and check that Wsdl. While this is loading, let me check the mobile application again. Okay, I'm going to add that Wsdl schema. And here, as I mentioned before, I like to check the content section first. And here you can see the add receipts container or section. And I like to check also the actions. So let me look for the actions in here. If I scroll down, I can see that there is a show submit receipt, any submit receipt action as well. And if I go back to my Mscl code, you can see that it redirects to that container, the add receipts. And then we have the show submit action map on the main container, and we have the add receipts container added here. And this container has the list action submit receipt map as well. Okay, let me take a look. Okay, so now we have here the expense claim screen open in the mobile application. And if I go to the action section here, this is an Android device. It's on the top right corner, the 3 dots. You will see the add receipts action, and this action on the right corresponds, matches this one action here. And if I tap or select the add receipts action, then it will redirect to the add receipts container, and can see that it's displaying this information. We set it up here, and here, let me try to do this. Here you can tap and select one or any of these different options that we have, just like in the website. In this case, I'm gonna select them all, and now if I click on the OK or the check, it should now add, have the same behavior that we have in the instance. It should add those receipts to my claim. So the receipts list were clear. Now let's give it a second for this to refresh the mobile screen. And now if I go to the details section of the claims, I will see all my receipts records that I just added. So all this behavior come out of the box for the expense claim screen from the Acumatica mobile code. And I just want to do the same thing like from scratch. So let's do the same thing ourselves with another Acumatica screens. In this case, let's use and let's review the purchase order screen. So let me get out of the expense claim here. Trying to save my changes. And let me go back to the menu here in the mobile application. Okay, I'm back here. And now I'm going to switch to my instance, and let's go ahead and take a look at the purchase order screen. I'm going to refresh this. Actually, not. Let's try. So you can see here on the details section, similar stuff. We have an add items button here. Let me try and click that. Okay, I will have to refresh my screen. So let's give it a second to reload. And while this is reloading, I'm going to open that purchase order screen in here in the mobile code. So close all these tabs. All right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, and as I mentioned before, you can see the purchase order screen, just like the expense claim screen. On the details section has a button here that opens a smart panel or a pop-up box. In here, the same thing. This one has a filter on the top, but we have the same behavior. We can select different records here that will be added to your main record, in this case, the purchase order. So let's say we want to do the same behavior here in this screen. Out of the box, the purchase order screen doesn't have the add items action map, so we will have to do it ourselves. And just like before, let's take a look at the Wsdl schema, and let's look at the content. And in the content section, we can see all the different containers here. And sometimes with the fields, you know, the value here will map the label, but sometimes with the actions and the container, it can be a little bit tricky. So in this case, what I like to do, let's say I want to find the add items action. I go to the AXPX, I locate that detail section, I locate inside that detail tab the detail, the transaction grid. See here, this is the detail tab. This is the grid. And in here, I will try to find that action, that add items action. You can see that add item actions here. And you can see that this action has an auto callback and it's calling this command here. Then I went to the graph of that screen, and I was able to find that action, that add items action here. You can see that action here. And I noticed that when you know, the user press OK or add, it calls another action. It calls the add an inf cell by site. Then I went here and I tried to find those actions, these names. Try to look for that one first. And yes, I was able to find them both. So I know, just like we saw before with the show submit received and submit received, one of them will be the action that will open or call that container, and the other one will be the action call when you click or tap on OK. So I have these two actions here, and let's go and take a look here. And oh yes, let's review the container. For the container, what I did was I reviewed the name that we have on top. In this case was inventory lookup. And I went to my content section here and located that inventory lookup. So let's see, it's here. The inventory lookup inventory, you can see another one. Let's go and take a look at that. Content. That one, if you see the content, the different fields inside of it will correspond to the filter or the header of that pop-up box. So you can see the barcode here. And if I go back to the call, you will see the barcode field there as well. And if I scroll a little bit down, you will see the inventory lookup container with the different fields available. And if I go back to that pop-up, those fields will match these ones here displayed on the screen. Okay, so let's take a look at the Mscl code that I have prepared for this. And here we are making an update to the purchase order screen. We're updating that main container, the header. We're adding that add inf or add items action. And just as like we saw with the expense claim out of the box, we are redirecting to a container that we're going to add ourselves. In this case, that's the inventory lookup. That's the grid section of that pop-up. We're passing a list. And here below, we can see the definition of that container, the mapping. Here we can see some fields that I added to display just to show you guys. And also we mapped that OK action that we saw before. Same behavior as with the expense claim. So let's take a look at this in action. So let's go ahead and try to go to our purchase order screen here. Let's go ahead and tap on the first purchase order record. And here, since this is a Android device, we can go ahead and click on the three dots. And you can see the add items action is now mapped and it's being displayed. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on that action. And now it should, display that container. It should show me that container here that I mapped. And here, same thing as before. If I click here, you can tap and select one by one. So I'm going to go ahead and do select all. And then I'm going to do the OK or check mark here. And let's give it a second. And yeah, it should behave just like that expense claim screen where it added that detail record to the detail section using that container. So, okay, let me go back here. Let's give it a second to refresh. And okay, if I scroll down, go to that detail section, give it a second to refresh. Yeah, it should show that record that we just added. So yeah, so I just wanted to show you how we can emulate any behavior that we see in the mobile application. In this case, I selected this redirect to container. I feel this can be useful. And I'm going to guys if you have more questions, but I have another example that will be my last example, and it's about the quick process container or dialog box. Is there any question up to this point?
So a question I have, Cesar. So, you know, you're looking at examples that we have to figure out how you do certain things that you could apply, obviously, to any project that the developers have. Does the mobile training that we have at Acumatica University give any additional advice when you're creating applications? Do they talk about what you have here in terms of going through examples? Are you aware of that?
Yes. So the training, I know for a fact that it will provide a lot of details, a lot of information, you know, things a beginner user to intermediate. There are some things, some specific scenarios. Yeah, there are too specific. They're not included there. But, you know, if watching this recording or any of my other presentation, they could find that missing information from those training. But yes, the training will definitely guide them to achieve many of the things we have discussed today.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So in that case, I will now go ahead and let's talk about the quick process on the source order screen. This is another question that I get often. So let me go ahead there. This and so here in the source order and also many other Acumatica screens, we have the quick process action here on the top. And let me click there. And I need to, of course, refresh my section here. Let's give it a second. And while this is loading, I'm going back to the main menu here on the mobile application. I'm going to open the source order. And okay, it seems this is done. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that quick process action. This quick process action brings another container, another dialog box, another smart panel, another pop-up box. This one, you can see, you can select different options. You can select a warehouse, and then you can click OK. In here, for this mapping, I'm going to use a different approach. So we're going to see a different approach. And for this one, we're going to try to map a dialog box. This functionality, I think it was added in 21R1. And yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. So same thing as before. Let's get the information. Let's get the container names. Let's get the action names that we're going to use on our MSDL code. So I'm going to close this and bring back that Wsdl code for that screen. going to search for that content. And in here, I think the name was quick process. So let's try to find that quick process. Okay. Process. Okay, so here we are, no, that's the actions. Go back to the content. Yeah, this is the content. So here we can see that process order is here, and then we can see other containers. Let's see the printing, sendings, availability, shipping, and invoicing. And if I go back here and bring back that action, we can see we have the shipping, invoicing, availability. So I go back here, you can see that they kind of map each one of those sections of that smart panel in here. And if I go and take a look at the actions, you can see one quick process in there. You can see another quick process action here. And we can see the quick process OK action, which should match this one here. So now let's go and review our Mscl code that I have prepared for that screen. So let's go there. All right, and here, so here we started similar to the other way. We map that action that, let me go back to the screen, this quick process action here, we map it here, but in this case, we're using a different approach. So here, we're going to redirect to dialog. That's the new functionality added in 21R1. And here you can see that I'm using the same basically screen ID, just adding dialog 1 or D1 at the end. And here I'm mapping that dialog. In this dialog here, I'm mapping my quick process OK action. We're going to have that display OK. I'm mapping a cancel general action as well here. And I'm mapping the process order container. So as we saw before here, we have around 5 different containers. In this case, I'm mapping only one, and what I'm doing, I decided to do was just add a couple of the other fields from the other containers to only one. So you can see here, I'm mapping the process order, and here I'm adding these 2 fields from the process order container, but I'm also adding the create shipment field from the process order shipping. I'm also adding the prepare invoice field from the process order invoicing, and I'm mapping, of course, my action, the OK action. So, so let's go ahead and take a look at this in action. So I'm going to bring now my sales order screen in the mobile application. And I'm going to open and tap that sales order record. And following up to Mark's question before, you can also find more details about this redirecting to container or to a dialog in the help.acumatica.com. There's a section, one section per each one of these approach. And I know that Brian Stevens, one of the MVPs here on the call, he made a couple of articles, one in specific about the dialog that goes very into details how you can map any type of dialog. So that's another source of information there. And okay, so let's test these quick process actions. So if I go to my 3 dots here, I can see that the quick process action was mapped. I'm going to tap that quick process there. Let's give it a second to load. And it should then redirect me to that process order container inside that dialog that we just created. Let's give it a second to load. All right. And here we can see that process order container. We can see the couple of fields here. We can see also some of the fields of the other section. So if I go back to my source order screen, we can see I added just these 4 fields from the shipping and invoicing. And if I go here to top right corner and click, I can see the actions that I mapped. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do OK. And let's give it a second. So it does the process for this sales order record. And just like we saw with expense claim and the purchase order, it should refresh the sales order record and update to whatever status or information that we have processed here in the dialog box.
So a question I have is, those ellipses, those vertical ellipses there for the actions. If I wanted to make it easier for users, could I create an OK button on the form? Is that possible using the framework?
Yes.
Instead?
Yes. So
That's
you could have the actions here. In this case, this is Android device. You can have the actions be directly displayed. If it's iOS, the same. I think they're at the bottom, so you can have them directly displayed. And in order to do that, in the mobile code, let me show you here.
Because I mean, it's kind of hidden, right? If you're just getting this application
yes,
as an end user, you go, okay, what do I do?
Yes.
Unless this is, like you said, it's Android and they know to click on the ellipses. But
yes, and there's another time, and the reason for that is so that's because sometimes you have too many actions.
Yeah.
And then yes, you will kind of look not very nice in the small screen. So we just group them all in those 3 little dots. But yes, if you don't have too many actions, let's say only OK and then cancel, then you can have them display. And for that, well, that is loading. Let me that's not what I want. Here. And for that, see if I see an example here. Okay, so you see we have the form action to expand, and there is another one. So you can set it in a way that they're not grouped. Just by setting one of those properties to 0 or just removing it altogether from the Mscl code.
Okay.
I might have to kill this and try this again. Okay. Okay. And
then I've been wanting to ask this question since the start. That emulator that you use, is that a free emulator? Do you have to pay for it? It's a nice, clean interface. It looks like I like it, but I was just curious why you picked it. And
yeah, so
is it free?
I just picked it because it was free. This is not my favorite, but yeah, it was free. It was more to actually to game to play. But yeah, that was the freest one that I could get before this meeting. And yeah, it seems to be working okay.
Mark, back when I took the web services class, I believe they also covered mobile there. And this was, I think, 2018, 2019. And BlueStacks was part of the bill that they provided for us to be able to do our testing for mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just noticed how nice and clean it looks. So as opposed to looking like a phone and its rounded edges, I like it.
Except it keeps pushing you to play games all the time.
Oh, is that right? Because that's the advertise. That's why it's free.
Yes. So before about the actions, you see here the containers. We have three different attributes or properties. Container action to expand, the form actions to expand, the list action to expand, and you can set it up so they are displayed right away in the container, or they're grouped in those three little ellipses or dots. So yeah, that's something you can change. And the reason for that was, as I mentioned before, sometimes we have 4 or 5 actions and they're just too long with the display names, or too big and they just look a little weird. But yeah, if there are only 2 or 1, you can definitely set it up to display it right away. So yeah, let's take a look. Yeah, so I don't know if you have, guys, any other questions. While this is loading, I just want to pass on some tips. These tips I usually recommend to the clients or partners in the dev support cases. One of them is when you're building or creating new screens, new large screens, like the sole sorter screen, for example, has too many tabs, too many containers. I recommend doing it by section. So you first add the header, add a couple of fields in that header, test, then you can add the detail tab, test, and you keep adding on. And this is helpful because if there's an issue, there's an error or a bug, you can detect right away, oh, it's this section, the issue is coming from this section. If you map the whole screen and there is a bug, it's gonna be very tedious. It's might take some time to figure it out what field or what container or what action is causing that error. So just build the new screen by section and test after every section just to make sure everything is working fine. And the second tip that I suggest always is to log out and then log back in after you make any changes to the mobile application. So let's say we're working in the mobile application, we're testing, we added, then we went back to the instance, to the customization project, we added a new field or a new action or a new container. Yeah, please log out after you publish your customization, log out of the mobile application, and then log back in to make sure that you have the latest changes there in the mobile application. There have been some times where partners are doing everything right and they're testing, they don't see their results, and yeah, they just needed to log out and log back in. So that will save some time too. And another tip is, I mentioned before, is that the field names that you use in the MSDL code. So here, all these field names, they usually match the label name of these fields in the website, in the instance site. So that's a good way to make sure you're adding the proper name, and they usually match. So just be aware of that. And the last tip that I'm planning to pass you is when you have, let's say you inherited a customization project or solution that has already mobile screens added, and for some reason they stopped working, you upgraded, the screen doesn't work, you try to open the screen and it doesn't work, and it's a huge, large screen. So in that case, to troubleshoot those type of behaviors or issues, I recommend to first reduce the MSDL code to the minimum. Same thing, just keep the header and then maybe 2-3 fields, test, see if that fixes or not. And if it fixes, then the issue is in the MSDL code, so you can move on and try to find the root cause. So let's say you did that, you reduce the MSDL code to the header, 2-3 fields, nothing, it's still, you try to open that screen and it doesn't work. Then the next step that I recommend is to reproduce the graph. Go to the graph of that screen and same thing, remove all those actions, those event handlers, just keep the minimum data views, maybe for the header, same thing, and test again just to confirm that the issue is coming or not coming from the graph of that screen. And if that didn't fix it, you still have the issue, then you will have to follow the same thing, just reduce the code in the DAC. Just remove some of the fields, or comment them out, keep the main fields, and blast the attributes of the fields, because sometimes, yes, you reduce the fields to the key fields, but you still have the issue. So then check the attributes of those fields. The issue might be coming from there. And yeah, so I think those were some of the tips that I can remind now. And yes, you guys can ask any question or chime in.
Someone reached out to me recently about a blog article I wrote for my own website a while back related to barcodes. They said that they had inquired about QR barcodes in the mobile app. And so, of course, the mobile app has the ability to open up a window to be able to scan a barcode. And a lot of people use 3 of 9. A lot of people transition to QR codes. And so I'm not exactly sure how she had asked the question, but she was asking about support for QR codes. And she said that her response that she got back was, well, QR codes are not supported. Well, this was a year and a half, 2 years ago that I had posted the blog article and actually had a picture of a QR code that I had scanned with the mobile app. And so I do know that QR codes do work with the camera for the mobile app. But one of the things that she was wanting to do with the QR code is to be able to use the multi-field feature of a QR code and be able to scan that one QR and populate multiple fields. Is there do you know if that's supported, or if there's any plan for that to be supported in the future?
All right, so that's a good question. So first, the QR code, yes, you can read the QR code. Yeah, you definitely have a sample, and they can take a look at one of those warehouse management screens out of the box. Now, the second part of the question about the autofilling the fields, I don't think that's supported yet. So in that case, I will recommend her to just add that idea on our community feedback and have partners vote on that idea, so engineering can consider it in the future release. But yes, I don't think we have that functionality to be implemented by normal users. Engineering, they definitely have that functionality, but it's not available or supported for general public. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just thinking about that. Do you happen to know how those multiple fields are returned by the QR code? I'm thinking of as a workaround, just to read everything into a field and just with a customization parse it into splitting it into fields.
That's exactly what I suggested to the person that was asking me. So, but no, I don't know how she's got them set up in the QR code, but that is exactly the approach that I told her I would probably take as well.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? So just the only thing I want to kind of close on with you, Cesar, if someone's new to doing mobile development, what are the steps would you suggest they take to get up to speed? Just go through the training first, and then what else would you suggest if you were talking to a new developer to get up to speed on mobile? What would your advice be?
Yeah, so I will definitely suggest first to try the T400 and the T410 free mobile developer training courses. They're free and available on our Acumatica University site. And there they will definitely find most of the details to do most of the things that they need to do. If they want to try, let's say they get the basics from there and they're trying a little bit more intermediate stuff, then they should definitely review the help.acumatica.com. The documentation team has prepared that section with many examples. There's some code snippets with Mscl code. It also shows the different approaches of redirection there, and it has the details about every one of the key fields or properties or attributes and instructions that we use in the Mscl code. And last, I will suggest just to follow the Acumatica community and Stack Overflow and the blogs from our MVPs and our developers of Acumatica. They keep posting every time there's a new feature. Usually there's a new blog post, and it's very, very helpful. And so yeah, those are the three main places I will recommend them to start.
So one of the things that's been nice over the past year about is that the training group has published the training examples up on GitHub. Do you know if they have any of the mobile examples with the code snippets up there on GitHub? Have you gone up there and looked for them?
No, I honestly don't. I don't think so, but I haven't checked.
Yeah, that might be something you might want to follow with training to see if they can get some of because it's always helpful to be able to get the code directly.
Yes.
To be able to cut and paste. And have you created any gists up on GitHub personally and shared any of the code that you work with? And if you haven't, I would suggest that you might want to spend some time and share some code out on GitHub, because it obviously makes it easy for people to copy and paste and start messing around with the code.
Yes, that's one of my tasks for this 2022.
Oh, awesome.
I tried last year, but yeah, I couldn't find enough time. And I do have some material from past presentations and from the summit that I feel will be helpful. So yes, I'm planning to upload those to GitHub this year.
All right. Anyone else have any questions before we close the call?
Yeah, no, that was really, really in-depth and thorough, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, guys. We're going to end the call now. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Good.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.